I think that the industry, it's just changed. It's a different world than it was in, it's like if you go through each decade of film since its origins, there's always like a shift. And I think that we're in a new shift. And right now, especially 2024, we're in a new shift with after all the streaming wars and AI's coming, we're in a new interesting territory where we're having a really rocky time in the film industry. But I do think that it is still possible.
Welcome to episode number 14. I'm Benjamin Vomastic, and today we're joined by Cameron Barrett. Cameron is a professional production designer and art director in Los Angeles, and he's been in the industry for 9 years now. How are we doing today, Cameron?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to jump into things. So yeah, just jumping in. What got you into the movie industry, and why are you passionate about film?
What got me in was honestly like my love of movies. Ever since I was a kid, my dad used to show me everything. So from like a very young age, I would get old classic movies, all the way up to modern 90s, 80s movies that were coming out. So like it wasn't unusual for like, Turner Classic Movies to be on TV growing up. And it's like,
Oh yeah.
so I really got into that, and I loved just the power of storytelling. And I would make my own like home movies when I was a kid growing up. And when I was in high school, decided, I think that I could actually, or I want to try and do this. And and so that's when I started to seriously pursue it. And I've been incredibly lucky to get all of the opportunities that I've had. And but that's like that's where it is. And I love movies because it's such a powerful medium. And I remember I had a professor explain it where it's like you're combining at all forms of art. You've got written word, you've got art like paintings or anything like that. You've got music. You're using all of these different mediums to convey an emotion or a message. And I think that that's just so powerful and cool. And but I'm a movie fan that joined. I'm sure as many are, but movie fan that joined the industry and has been sticking with it.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. And I definitely relate to the Turner Classic Movies back in the age of cable television. I remember growing up, and that was frequently on television at my house. And I remember, I don't know if he was there. I don't know how long he was on the station, but I remember like Ben Mankiewicz, I think is his name. He would always before, and I think there were interludes as well, like at the intermission or whatever, like between commercial breaks. Yeah. Good times.
No, yeah, it's such a cool thing. It is such a shame, like you were saying, network television kind of disappearing. I'm sure a lot of people don't get to experience that, and you've kind of been left up to their own with streaming to find their own stuff. But it was nice to have this curated. We're going to go through this actor's work or this director's work, or this is was a polarizing film back in the 40s, and it's like, that's so I never would have thought about that, and getting the backstory. It was a cool program that really was informative.
Definitely, yeah. So was your first experience studying movies, was that at college?
I took
like,
some
from a
film
perspective, of course.
I took some classes in middle school and high school, but they weren't really like super geared towards like how the film industry worked. It was more like, hey, here kids, here's a camera, go out there, film something cool, we'll screen it for everybody. So that was like where I got my first taste, where that was a lot of fun. And it's like, you got to kind of experiment with things. And, but then once I went to college, that's where I would say I got like the real, like I remember day one, it was like they put on Saving Private Ryan and we watched the opening, and it was like, all right, we're going to break down like every detail of this opening scene and talk about all the ways that everything is happening. We're only going to watch it on mute with paying attention to camera. And it's like, this is so interesting to really break it down in all the ways that, kind of like what I was saying, all the different department heads and what everybody was doing, what everybody was focused on in that movie, where I was like, cool. And it's like what my professor said, none of you know anything about making movies. So we're going to start from day one and we're going to walk you all the way through, which was really cool.
Yeah, definitely. No, that sounds like quite the exercise. I personally haven't done anything like that, but that definitely sounds intense and like a great way to learn about various different aspects for sure.
Hmm.
So then what got you into production design and art directing, and also like a two-part, like what exactly do these jobs do?
All right, yeah, I'll do the first part first. So what got me into art I kind of fell
Yeah.
into it in a weird way. When I was in film school, like you kind of go through when you're in film school, or honestly when you're starting out in the industry, you kind of go through the like, what do I want to be? And everybody always starts off like, I want to be a director. It's like what everybody wants to start off as.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, that's really, really hard. And it's like there's not a lot of no one's like, hey, come direct my project, because everyone wants to direct their own project. So you kind of start to fall into like, well, I want to be on set. What can I do to get on set? And so typically you'll find like a lot of people then fall into camera. Oh, I want to be a cinematographer, or I want to be a gaffer, or first
Mm-hmm.
AC, second AC, something like that. I thought I wanted to be a first AD, so I went to school and was really focused on becoming a first AD. And it wasn't until I was working on a lot of student projects and I was helping them with the art department stuff, because there was normally art department almost never gets picked. A lot of people go, I want to be on the camera team. And a lot of people don't pick art department. So the art department was
Yeah.
often very like understaffed. And I would jump in because I'm looking to make the day go faster.
Yeah.
And I had someone tell me, like, oh, you're really creative and really quick at like making design decisions and really quick at making this look good and making things happen. You should really pursue being an art director or a prop master or something in the art department world. And I was like, oh, I'd never
Yeah.
really thought about that. And then I started working with other people as art department, and the two skill sets really worked well for me, where it's like I have a very organized brain, but I also have a very creative brain. So when you're like dealing with all of the little pieces in the art department, where it's like you're deciding, what color is the coffee cup going to be, to how big is the room going to be, it's like it was I was able to jump into that very well through my experience like ADing and breaking down schedules and all of that.
Yeah,
But
for
so
sure.
that's how I kind of fell into the art department world. And after that, it kind of stuck. It was like, oh, I'm very good at this. A lot of people liked working with me
Yeah.
in that capacity, and it stuck. But then the second part, you were saying, like, what does a production designer, art director do in the industry?
Yeah.
Um, so the production designer, essentially, they decide the look of the film. So they're going to figure out what the house looks like, what the locations look like, what the cars are going to look like they build out the world of the film, working closely with the director, the producers, the cinematographer, to really bring everything to life. And
Mhm.
so everything on screen that's in the background or like actors holding, that's a decision that was made by the production designer in the art
Yeah.
department. And for an art director, it's very similar, but an art director, the way I like to break it down to people is the designer is designing everything. They're making all the decisions of what everything's going to look like, and the art director is executing that plan. So the designer will go with the art director and go, "This is what it's going to look like. This is what we're doing." He'll or they'll go, "This is how we're going to do it. I think this is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
We'll get these people. We'll hire the greensmen, and I'll communicate to them. We're going to hire our set builders." So it's like kind of like the executioner of the design is what the art director does. So they're similar in a lot of ways, and it's like typically a path like art directors typically become production designers, but they're
Mhm.
very similar in that way. But it's like making the design decisions versus like coming up with ways to make the design decisions happen.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's really cool stuff, and it's something that I definitely appreciate a lot more since I got into filmmaking for sure, and it's definitely the thing that I would say that I need the most work on. I mean, it's really funny listening to you go through what the jobs do because I think about it. It's like, oh, this is what me and my cinematographer did together on the film because
Yeah,
like we just don't have it in the budget when you're making a movie for $30,000.
yeah.
Obviously sacrifices need to be made. And yeah, I mean, it's just kind of funny as a whole thinking about like all of the different jobs that each person on like a crew on like a skeleton crew picks up.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, segueing in, what advice would you give to smaller productions, micro budget, ultra low budget films, or even student films that have zero budget? What advice would you give to these types of productions on how to improve the art slash production design?
My biggest piece of advice would probably be, I've like, it's kind of a two-parter. One's kind of like a funny jokey one, but my
Mhm.
biggest would be like getting a production designer or getting somebody that has that mindset. Because it's like, even having one person that's like, oh, like those curtains don't look that good, or like that couch isn't right, or oh, this is a
Yeah.
coffee mug that will say a lot. Like, if you have one person thinking about it, that will astronomically improve a lot of things. Because it's like, that's the way I kind of like to think about all the different positions on set. Is we all have our expertise and our technicalities, but it's like we're all looking to solve one problem. So it's like, oh, I'm the cinematographer. I'm going to make sure that the frame is good, the lighting's good, all that. The gaffer's making sure that the lighting's what the cinematographer wants. The boom operator's making sure that we're getting the dialogue and it sounds good. The sound mixer, it's like everyone's working on that individual piece of the whole thing. And
Yeah.
having one person that's like, I'm focused on what the props are going to look like, and I'm consciously thinking about why this prop versus this prop, or why we would want to change the pillows on the couch.
Mhm.
Having a person to do that is like, it will quickly change the look of something, because there's that conscious thought where, and it's like, you can get away with doing it like as a director if it's like, I'm going to try and think about this, but I feel like
Mhm.
offloading as much as you can to having that new perspective, or somebody, especially if somebody's knowledgeable or even excited about it, can really bring new and different things that you would never even think of. Where it's like, and it's like, I've been there on set where it's like, oh, you, in the script it says they're drinking out of a coffee mug, let's say, and it's like, oh, wouldn't it be more interesting if they were drinking out of like a cereal bowl, because their character is so distracted or so whatever, and they didn't do
Mhm.
the dishes. And it's like, oh, that's a really funny idea, or that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can grow because somebody else is thinking outside the box, or thinking of how to tell the story through their job. The second one is, if it's not possible to get somebody to be focused on it,
Yeah.
I always recommend is focusing on the locations, because you can find really great locations that are 90% of like what the film needs it to be. And
Yeah.
I think that that's something that's really beneficial. So many times I work with filmmakers, or I'm talking with filmmakers, and they go, oh yeah, we're shooting at this house. And I go, let me see photos and I can give you any advice or whatever. And
Mhm.
it's like an empty room with white walls, and it's got like a couch and two chairs. And it's like, oh, why are you picking this location? Oh, because it's free. Or oh, I got it for
Mhm.
$100. And it's like, okay, but now that $100, you're going to have to take all that money into putting stuff into that room, or painting the walls, or it's like you've kind of added a lot of work for yourself. Where if you had just gotten the location, and let's say it's, 2 grand or something, at least you can show up and you're ready to shoot, and time is the most expensive thing on set. So it's like, I
Oh
always
yeah.
recommend location. If you don't have the ability or the power, or because even sometimes on low budgets you don't even have the power to really dress everything, but if you can find a
Yeah.
location that's close, that's like the best piece of advice for art. It's always, in my experience, it's always worth it to get that ready to go location, like as ready to go as you can, because it saves money, it saves time. It's a really good thing to consider when you're location scouting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I think those are all really good tips. I think I know this isn't ideal, but like just thinking about it, like what if you only can afford that super cheap location, or you only can afford to like shoot at your parents' place or whatever, and like you have those white walls and everything. Is there anything you
That's
would suggest from there?
there. Yeah, there's because I mean, I grew, that's what my experience was in film school. Was like, I was, we were shooting at our parents' houses, our dorm apartments, or whatever.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is, I would say, find pops of color. Like, if you've got a window, throwing up curtains that are colorful or like a navy
Yeah.
or a blue or whatever fits the character,
Mhm.
that will
Yeah.
immediately add, because they're typically going to be like floor to ceiling. So that's a big color block and it'll help break it up. Then the next best thing would be like artwork on walls. And
Yeah.
depending on the scale of the project, I know clearance is something that we're always having to look out for in the stuff I work on. But depending on the
Mhm.
scale of it, it's like you can find some things that are going to be better to use than others, but artwork really helps to break up. It's just when you have like spaces that are all white walls, it just really it just drags the energy of the film down, unless it's meant to be that way. But it's like finding things to help break that up, and it's like color is always good because it looks intentional, it's exciting, it can draw your eye to different spaces, it can, yeah, adding color, adding, breaking up white walls. That would be the best course of action if you are in a location like that.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the curtains is a really good one. Artwork. What we did with the houses in the film we just shot was just asked the actors that were that was like their house, like they were living in, like
Hmm.
the characters were living in the house. Asked for photos of them as children, or even like recent photos, and just hung them
Yes.
up on the wall or taped them to the fridge and whatnot, just to make
Hmm.
it look like they actually lived there.
Yes. Oh, that's,
That's
yeah,
oh wait,
that's so important to do. Especially, yeah, I've been there where I've done family movies, and it's like we don't get the cast until the day of we're shooting, and it's like, okay, well, we're gonna have, hopefully we're not shooting in the living room first where we have no
yeah,
family photos on the walls. But yeah, that's a great thing. Always communicating with your actors to get photos or anything like that can really help to, it's a cheaper alternative to getting photos that you can use, and it adds to the reality of the film.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, as an art director slash production designer, like when you're watching movies, is that something that you're like consciously looking at? Because it's something that I've noticed, because I know it's like something that I really need the most work on. Like when I'm watching movies, I'm like so focused on that sort of thing as of late.
Yeah, that's good. That's an important thing as like a filmmaker, to be able to turn your brain on and catch things. That's why it's like I'm kind of a weird individual, because I've heard a lot of people joke, "Oh, once you join the film industry, you'll never be able to watch movies the same again." I thankfully can turn that off in my brain when I need to, and like enjoy a
Yeah,
movie, unless the movie is failing in some way where I'm noticing something that they're doing. But yes, I
yeah, for
do,
sure,
as
for
I'm
sure.
watching things. Yeah, as I'm watching things, I'll pick up and go, "Oh, that was a really good choice. Like, I really like the look of that," or "Oh, that was a really good
Yeah,
like piece of artwork that's you know, kind of visually telling you something about the character, something about the scene that's happening in front of you." But yeah, no, I definitely do pay attention for it, just because it's another way to, like I said, communicate a piece of the character, and it's yeah, it's definitely something that I pay attention to, especially with my line of work, like trying to find inspiration or cool ways to do different things, or, oh, I really liked that, I want to do that myself, or take on that myself.
yeah, yeah. No, it's like I feel like I've gotten a bigger appreciation for movies, honestly, ever since I started on my filmmaking endeavor. I definitely can get lost in movies for sure, especially if the movie's really good. But overall, just like definitely, yeah, just a stronger appreciation, like more in awe at the writing and the acting and the production design as well. Like 'cause that's something I've been focused on a lot lately. Like I definitely just have just such a strong appreciation because it's not easy, and like just really just appreciating all of the effort and work and creativity that went into making all of these. I watched because, well, I mean, this isn't going to come out until December, I don't think, but Halloween was 2 days ago, and I rewatched Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Scream,
Oh, fun.
and yeah, oh, I love all of them,
Yeah,
and
Scream's my personal favorite. I love Scream. That's one of my
yeah,
favorite horror movies.
that is my favorite movie, or my favorite horror movie of all time. Maybe not my favorite
Hmm.
movie, but it's my favorite horror movie, and it's my favorite horror series for sure.
Yeah.
But just watching those, and those were all, I mean, I think Halloween had the lowest budget, but I think all three of them were like, relatively speaking, comparatively to Hollywood movies, were all pretty low budget. But especially like looking at Halloween, I think it was made for a little over 300 grand, which of course inflation adjusted is probably a
Yeah.
little bit over a million nowadays. But and they shot the whole thing in 20 days, and just looking at it, like I was just impressed by the houses, the design of the houses, because it's like these very clearly are spots that people are living in, and like I completely believe it. Like they didn't just move in yesterday, and like
Hmm.
just seeing like dishes
Yeah.
and books scattered and frames on the wall and everything. It's like, yeah, I mean that's just totally not something that, I mean it's one of those, like going back to cable television. I think that was the first time I ever watched Halloween from start to finish, like uncut, because I it was always on television, like TV 14 growing
Yeah.
up on AMC, and you have the commercial breaks and everything, and uh. But yeah, like that's not something as like a 12-year-old kid that I would have looked at and said like, "Wow, that's like that's clearly a house that someone lives in." And it's just
Yeah.
like maybe if it was so bad that it was like, what's going on here, I might have actually recognized that something was off. But it's so cool that they're so good at what they do that it's just it's not even something that you think about, especially if you don't make movies and you haven't been involved in the process at all.
Yeah, no, the goal is definitely to try and be invisible. You want it to feel like, and it's like
Yeah.
I was the same way as a kid. And I kind of joke now with a lot of my filmmaker friends, like, oh, I had to rewatch a lot of movies because I watched it before I went to film school or before I really
Yeah.
started studying movies. And it's like, oh, I just remember it being a great movie, but I don't remember all the little nitty gritty things, or the way that the film actually was, where it's like, oh, this was actually really low budget and it's really impressive that they did it in this way,
Yeah.
like kind of looking behind the curtain a little bit. But yeah, no, that's fun. Yeah, I always try to revisit things, especially things I haven't seen in years, because it's like something new will pop out and it's like, oh wow, that's really cool, I like that
Yeah.
they did that. Or yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so switching gears, speaking, it relates to low budgets and trying to make things work. Asking the question of, do you believe that it's still possible to make it as an up and comer nowadays in the film industry? I know the 90s were really big. Like we had Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, and things have just changed so much. I mean, film festivals obviously don't have the same power that they had back then. And there are just so many more movies. And I mean, just the industry has just changed so much. And I see a lot of pessimism online. I try to be optimistic in any way possible, even if it's to a fault, where maybe I'm being too optimistic and maybe putting my head in the sand a little bit. But I try to keep an optimistic view on things. But realistically speaking, are you familiar with this sort of pessimism that the film dream is dead, that you can't make it like you once could, and the market's oversaturated? And just curious, do you have optimism or more nuance to it? Yeah, just curious your take on it.
Yeah, I would definitely say I'm more optimistic. I've always kind of been an optimistic, but looking at it, kind of being in the industry and kind of seeing, and I read a lot of like what's coming out and who these people are. I like to look into who's in it, because it's a miracle that any movie gets made. So I always like to look into who the filmmakers were. Is this their first movie? Kind of get an idea of what their
Yeah.
budget was. But I would definitely say I am optimistic, and it's like I agree with what you said. I think that the industry, it's just changed. It's a different world than it was in, it's like if you go through each decade of film since its origins, there's always like a shift. And I think that we're in a new shift. And right now, especially 2024, we're in a new shift with, after all the streaming wars and AIs coming, we're in a new interesting territory where we're having a really rocky time in the film industry. But I do think that it is still possible. I think that The real difference is if you look at like back in the 90s, it was very difficult to make a movie, I would say, because you had to,
Yes,
typically
absolutely.
they were shot on film, which is
Yes.
expensive. You would have to have a crew to operate and to take care of the camera, or you weren't going to get it. You would have to have, it's like all the pieces of making the movie were really difficult, so that there was, I would say, less not competition, but there was less, like when something came out that was new, it's like, oh, this kid did this, or this guy did this. This is really
Hmm.
cool. Everybody look at it.
Yeah.
There was a little bit more of that. Now it's much easier to make a movie. You can make a movie shooting on your phone. It's much
Yes.
easier to make a movie, but there's so much voice and so much everything. And it's like the example is you can go on like Tubi, go to the
Hmm.
horror genre, the comedy genre, whatever, scroll down past the blockbustery normal movies, and you'll see hundreds of movies that's like, I've never even heard of this. What is this? It was just dumped on Tubi. I don't know what
Yes.
this is. So it's, I think that you can definitely still make a movie. The thing is you have to have a really strong voice, and I think that that comes with really starting at the script stage,
Hmm.
finding that voice, making sure you've got a perfect script, and then taking that out and doing that script justice. So often I work with people sometimes, or I hear people, and they go like, well, this is what we got, we're just going to do it. And it's like, if you just do it, you're going to be like everybody else just doing it, and then everyone's going to be like, oh, okay, that was a movie, all right, cool. But if you have it, it's like, that's why when you look like Tarantino, I know that, I think you brought up Tarantino, he has such a distinctive
Hmm. Yeah.
voice, and it's like, oh,
Yes.
that was really cool, I love that, I like what they're doing. Kevin Smith too, distinctive voice, oh, I really like that
Hmm.
perspective, I like what they're doing, I want to go on another thing, another journey with them. So I think that's
Hmm.
the big difference is it's definitely possible, just there's the competition has become so fierce that it's really hard to kind of stand out. So you want to make sure that you do everything in your power to stand out and do something that's refreshing and interesting, and showing something that people maybe haven't seen in a long time, maybe something that they haven't seen at all. But I think that that's like one of the most important things to do in today's day and age. We're also in a weird time too, because there's been a great shift from, like, yeah, the way I like to explain it is like, back in the day it used to be like, oh, we're going to go to the movies, Steven Spielberg has a new movie, we're going to go see the new Steven Spielberg picture, or we're going to go see the new Robert
Hmm.
Zemeckis movie. And it's like, oh, we're going to go see this new filmmakers movie. Now it's kind of changed to, oh, we're going to go see the new Marvel movie, we're going to go see the new Matrix movie, we're going to go see the new, like, whatever the new franchise, Star Wars movie. So
Right.
it's kind of shifted from that independent voice, or like that independent filmmaker, and into the franchise model, which it seems like it's having a really rocky time right now. It seems like people are getting a little tired of those franchises, and they're not bringing in the money that they used to, and that's what excited everyone getting involved with them, was, oh my god, Avengers made $1 billion on opening
Yeah.
night, and this is insane. And they don't have that, it feels like they don't have that longevity in the budget world anymore. But that's kind of a nature of it, is everything is shifted also from these franchises. But I do see, and I do think that audiences are starting to get exhausted by it, and that it's going to again
Yeah.
shift to looking for that more like the newer voices, or the newer stories, or seeking out outside of the studio system for
Yeah.
film.
Yeah. I guess I don't have any data on this. I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't take a long time at all to figure it out, but I'm an avid moviegoer. Like, I go to the movies like 50 to 100 times a year, no exaggeration,
Same.
which I know is it's an outlier case, but to me it feels like last year, two, it feels like we're getting a lot more independent films on the big screen from so I started avidly going in 2017, and I feel like the number of independent films that I see in theaters seems to be significantly higher than it was like 7 years back. And like it seems like it's starting to go more and more and more. Like and like I get like really excited to see these new independent, like I actually like see like ads for them and everything, like trailers and whatnot. I'm super excited for Nora, and
Oh, it was
BD was
fantastic if
really
you haven't
good.
seen it.
Oh, you were one of the people who've seen Nora already.
Yes, yes. No, I was lucky enough. I got to go and see it with a Q&A with Sean Baker and
Oh,
Mikey.
nice.
It was awesome. It's a very very fun movie.
I'm so pumped. It comes out here on Thursday. I'm gonna go see it
Oh,
this
fun.
weekend.
Yeah, it was a fun time. It's a fun movie. But yeah, that's exactly that. That's a great example of a movie that's come out recently that's kind of unlike anything you've seen, and it was so
Mhm.
fun and refreshing and hilarious. But I'm a huge fan of Sean Baker, so I wasn't
Yeah.
surprised. But yeah, it's like
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't be surprised too to see if that was a true running statistic. I see everything that comes out, but I wouldn't be surprised if more
Yeah.
indie movies were getting that. I also think that I'm hoping that studios go back to kind of the Blumhouse model, where it's like if you make a movie
Yeah.
for $1 to $5 million,
Yeah.
you make your budget back and you make some more, and it's like cool, and then we'll do that again, and then you're not like throwing all your eggs in one basket of like, oh well, we made a
For sure. Yeah.
$800 million movie and then it didn't do that well, and it's like, oh shoot, now we've got to find another movie to make up for that loss. I think that because I
Yeah,
think
and it
that
feels like those do explode. Like one or two of those a year, it seems like do like
yes,
crazy
yes,
box
and that's like
office.
a model I think is much better, because I think that I don't know if you I remember if you brought this one up. Thelma, you did mention Thelma, right?
I did not know.
Oh, then I
Sounds
must have been thinking
familiar.
about. But yeah, Thelma was a good example of that. That was the one that was about the mother, the grandmother who gets
Yeah.
scammed. Yeah, yeah, and that movie was a very similar story. It was like, I think it was a very modest budget. They bought it for $1 million, and then it ended up making, I think, 10 million. But it's like, oh, that was like one of the distributor's most profitable movies, because it was such a light, it was such a small budget and such a small
Yeah.
everything. But yeah, I hope that it seems that a lot of studios are starting to go into that model, or distributors are going into that model where it's that modest budget, hoping to make the budget back or make a little bit more, and if it blows up and it becomes huge, then cool, that's a great win for it. And I think that that's important. I think that's a good model that I'm a fan of, both for creativity and for just like getting new stories out there, and taking a chance on new filmmakers and seeing all the new stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the audiences would love it. So, I mean, it's just going to give you so much variety. And I hope that, I mean, it seems like audiences are starting to come back to theaters, especially if when the right movies come out. And it doesn't have to all be existing IPs and big franchises. Like, I see Long Legs as a huge W.
Oh yeah,
And I
that
mean,
was
there's
cool to see.
yeah, yeah. I saw that the second day it came out. I saw it at 10 o'clock on a Friday. No, 10:30, and I was just amazed that it was sold out. I could not believe it. I was so excited to
Yeah.
see something like. Granted, it was technically a weekend, but like something that late at night that was a non-existing IP to have
Mm-hmm.
a sold out theater, it was awesome. Like it brought back memories of my childhood, like going to see the blind. Well, the Blind Side was an existing IP, but just an example of a movie where I remember
Yeah.
going and it was sold out. It feels like that doesn't happen very often anymore. But I don't know. I mean, I like to stay optimistic. It seems like things are getting better from the box office perspective, and yeah, I mean, I really hope that things do trend that way, that they do make more of the low and mid budget movies, and audiences that their tastes come to the big screen and we can have a theater
Yeah.
going culture
Oh, I hope
again
so
for
too.
sure.
It would be really sad if theaters were not a thing. Thankfully, because I go to the movies as much as I can, and some days it's empty, but then sometimes it's like when I saw Nora, it was a completely full theater, which was
Yeah.
like so exciting to see. Where it's like, oh great, we've got a full theater experience, and it's yeah. Then it's like it really depends, but I do see. I'm often surprised sometimes the movies that do get the full theaters, where I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
didn't think anybody was gonna see this, but
Yeah.
I hope that it doesn't die.
Oh, yeah. I guess I felt like if it was going to die, it would have happened in 2020, 2021. It, to me, it seems like we survived that, but I don't know, are you still
Yeah, I
concerned?
think I think it's still projecting Rocky, but it does feel like it's not on life support anymore. I haven't looked at the numbers in a while. I know it was really bad, where a lot of theaters were closing in that
Mm-hmm.
2020 2021 time
Yeah.
frame. But yeah, I'm not 100%. I haven't looked into like the theater information in a while since then, but just from me being there. But
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, still, like, staying on, because I had a couple of thoughts that came to my mind about just making it in today's industry. Do you know if agents and managers are still like reaching out to new filmmakers? Because I know of a story, or I've heard multiple of these stories just from listening to. I don't know if you're familiar with Alex Ferrari, the Film
I
Hustle podcast.
I don't think so. No.
But he has a podcast where he just interviews independent filmmakers and just talking about like how they got their movies made or how they got discovered. And I've heard stories of the actual filmmaker that was on the show or like people they knew that like got discovered from making a feature film and like an agent reached out to them, or they made a short film, posted on YouTube, and it got X amount of views, and someone found them through that, and that was how they got their agent or manager, and that was how they progressed in the industry. It seems like a lot of these stories happened in the 2010s or 2000s. I haven't heard a lot of these stories recently. Have you heard of anything like this in recent times, or do you know if this sort of thing still happens?
Yes, it definitely does still happen. It's something that's like one of my favorite. I am always looking out for films that did that. The most, I guess, successful one that I can think as of recent was
Mhm.
the Smile series.
Yes,
Smile
yeah,
was based off of a short film in 2020 that I don't know exactly how they found it or who found it or what, but
yeah.
I know it was a short film in 2020 that then went on to become a movie that was going to go straight to streaming, but it tested incredibly well,
Hmm.
and it blew up in theaters. And now Smile 2 is out and doing
Hmm.
just as well.
Yeah,
And so it definitely does happen. It really depends, I think, on the genre.
okay.
I'm a big horror fan, and
Hmm.
I
Yeah, me
watch
too.
like every try to watch every horror movie that comes out. So I kind of see it a lot in the horror world, but I also
Yeah,
think that the horror world has always been the like inviting or the gateway space for a lot
yeah.
of independent filmmakers. It's just even back to like the 70s and 80s, a lot of people started with a horror film and then they expanded into other films.
Hmm.
Um, but it definitely does happen. Yeah, there's quite a few that like I know that like Kyle Edward Ball, who did Skinamarink, he was discovered, or he might have actually just done that on his own. I'm not 100%
Hmm.
sure, but he did short YouTube films.
Hmm.
Like Michael and Danny Philippi for Talk to Me, they were YouTubers who wrote a really good script and pitched it around. And it's like that's the other avenue is if you have that like perfect script, people will
Hmm.
definitely be interested in reading it. But it definitely does still happen. I just think that either people don't, if you don't like look into it, you might not know. Like Smile, I think a lot of people would be surprised if it was like, yeah, that was a short film that was on YouTube. A lot
Yeah.
of people would have been like, oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was just a new movie that came out.
Hmm.
And so it does definitely still happen. There's a few names that I can think of, but yeah, it definitely does still happen. But it's like what I was saying earlier, you have to have that like voice or that thing that really sticks out to people. And it's like using Smile as an example. It's like, oh, that smile face villain thing that's very unsettling. It immediately sticks in your brain and you go, oh, that's
Mhm.
creepy, that's weird. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's not a shock that it's like a producer or an agent or whoever, however those pieces fell together, went, I think that this could be something big. And it's just, you have to kind of you have to make sure that it's like what I said, you have that voice or that thing or that like demand attention from the audience or from whoever you're pitching your project to. That's like the most important thing, because that's what I always say. It's like you never really know who's going to end up watching something,
Yeah.
especially if it's on YouTube or on Tubi or on wherever. It's like you never know who's going to end up watching it, and somebody could go, "Hey, I really liked that. I'm going to look that person up. Oh, I'm going to get a hold of them. Hey, I really liked what you did. Let's, I want to do something with you."
Yeah.
You never know, and it's like the best thing you can do is make something that demands that attention.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can think of some examples with horror movies for sure. It seems like that's the genre, but at the same time, horror seems to be the one genre right now where they are making the low budget movies and they are making the non existing IP. I mean, I guess it has happened with comedy. I mean, there've been a few like there was My Old Ass that just came out. I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure that was original.
Yes, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was too. I looked up the director briefly. I think I might be completely wrong here. I think she was acted in a few things and then wrote this script and
Uh,
used those connections. But yeah, I think that was her first feature. I think she had done a few shorts, but it's
mhm.
yeah, I think that was her first feature and it was an original script.
Yeah, and then Dee Dee as well. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that was just based on the writer
Yeah.
director's childhood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So,
For his, I think he went through Sundance. It's funny. I
yes.
actually know him. I
Oh, really?
did a project. Yeah, I did a project with him back at USC years and years and years and years ago. But
Interesting.
I'm pretty sure he went through Sundance, if I remember correctly. I remember when I saw his name, I was like, "Hey, I know this guy," and
I
looked him
believe it
up
was
and was
Sundance as
reading
well.
about how he did it. But I think he went through the Sundance lab, if I'm not mistaken, and then workshopped the script through there, and then made the film uh, through those connections, I believe.
Yeah. So I mean, it looks like they're at least giving comedy a chance again. It seems like there weren't really comedy. I mean, there were some, but there weren't like the 2000s where it was just comedy. It seems like, and I was a child, so I wasn't going to see movies in theaters like that at the time, but it seemed like in the 2000s, like comedies were like what horror are now for theaters. I hope that, yeah, I mean, I just hope that we get to see more chances taken on comedy movies and that they can have more of a theatrical space and, yeah, hopefully give more directors, writers opportunities in the comedy industry because, you know, I've seen people say this and I just don't buy it that they're saying that people don't want to go see comedies in theaters. But when I think about it, that actually seems like one of the genres that really does benefit from the theatrical experience, at least in my view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think seeing anything with a crowd is fun. Like seeing Nora, because that was a comedy that was very funny, but seeing it with a crowd and being in a room of everybody laughing at all the
Yeah.
jokes or all the situations, yeah, it's definitely fun. I think that the challenge is comedy is like one of the hardest genres.
Yes.
It's a very subjective genre where it's like not everyone's going to always laugh at the same thing. I feel
Yeah.
like it's also, yeah, it should, the times have really changed where comedy has gotten hit really hard, especially with different sensitivities where it's like I think a lot of people are afraid to make those really raunchy or not, I don't want to say like offensive, but you know what I mean, like
I know
comedies of the early
exactly what you
2000s.
mean.
Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
I feel like it's this murky water that some people are afraid to go back into, and I think that's also because historically comedies typically do, like, they break even. I think they don't really ever, it's I think rare for them to explode
Uh,
the way like a horror movie could, or the way another franchisee type movie could. But I know we've had a few, because I know like the big one was No Hard Feelings came
Yeah.
out not too long ago. That was a big one that did well, which was, I
Yep.
think, like a real step back into that early 2000s
Oh,
direction.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one I know that it was just more of a romantic comedy, but like Anyone But You, when that came out, that did
Yes.
really well. That
That
blew up,
movie
and
exploded.
yes, and it's like, oh, so it's proving that there is a market for it and there is an audience for it. Um, but it happens, but yeah, that is a very difficult genre, especially in the indie world, because typically what really propels a comedy is your actor, your performer. If you've
Yes.
got someone that amplifies it and it becomes like their vehicle of their personality or their acting chops or their whatever they bring to that comedic table, that really amplifies a comedy. So it becomes really difficult in the indie world if you don't have that voice or that personality. It
Hmm.
can be very difficult to stand out, because it's just like finding that way to stand out. And that's why I think comedies are really hard in the indie world. And that's why I
Yeah.
think a lot of people lead towards horror, because it's a little easier to make a splash in that world. And I know, because whenever I talk to producers, it's like, oh yeah, we're not going to touch a comedy. It's way too volatile, way too difficult, and it's the comedy genre is a very, very difficult genre.
For sure. Yeah. Doable though. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Swingers was made for what, like 200 grand? I mean,
Yeah.
you got to cast Vince Vaughn, but I mean, there are very funny people out there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I
And
think even too, it's like Swingers is a good example, because that had like John Favreau.
mhm.
I believe he wrote and directed it, and it's like,
Yes.
oh, that it's such a strong. It's like that witty, sharp voice, and it's like you can find that. But yeah, it's like all these pieces, and that's why it's like, and that's true for any film. But it's like all these pieces coming together to make this thing that's just like, hey, look at me, this is awesome, and that's so challenging.
Yeah. 100%. And yeah, I mean, I resonate so much with what you're saying about getting that actor, because in writing and directing, producing comedy, like I've started to spend a lot of time like really taking Aaron Sorkin's advice and like studying why do you like this movie, or
Hmm.
why don't you like this movie, or you like 90% of this movie but then there's 10% scattered throughout that's like starting to lose you, and like take note of like what's going on there. And a very common note that I write down, it's like, oh, Paul Rudd is making this movie, Vince Vaughn is making this movie. Like, it's a good movie and it would be good if they weren't
Hmm.
in here, but the reason that this movie is so good and so funny is because of there's just this actor that's really shining and really stealing the show.
Yes. Yeah. It really goes to show like the power of an amazing actor, especially an amazing actor that's responding to the work
Yeah.
well. It can really propel a lot of things, and that's often why it's like, studios look to that. It's that's why a lot of their decisions, especially if like we're talking like in the indie world pitching scripts or anything, it's like getting that actor attached can do wonders for a small project.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a fun thing to see and imagine how different things could be and what actors are doing
Yeah.
what in a movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess one bit of optimism before I move on to the next subject is Scary Movie 6, greenlit.
Oh yes,
That'll be
yes.
coming
I
to
I
theaters.
was
I don't know
reading
if
that the
it's,
other day.
yeah, I don't know if it's 2025 or 2026. I hope I'm saying the name right, but the Wyan brothers.
I thought it was Wayne, but I could be wrong
Wayne,
too.
okay, you know what? You're probably right, but they're very funny, like actually
Yes.
funny, and
Hmm.
they definitely take risks. Like it's
Oh yeah.
it'll. I have no doubt it's going to be a very much 2000 style vibe, and
Oh, I would I
you
would
know,
I would hope so.
yeah,
I feel like that'd be a disservice to that
yeah,
legacy.
and I just think that who knows if they make who knows what the budget they're going to give them. I don't. I would assume it would be somewhere between 20 and 50 million. Who knows? But they do that and say it 5x is the budget. Like maybe all bets are
Yeah.
off. Maybe we're trying these out more often. And I know Ryan Reynolds, Vince Vaughn, I want to say Elizabeth Banks, David Spade are doing this movie called Animal Friends, an R-rated comedy
Hmm.
that's coming out next summer. which I'm really excited about because like I think that's just another one. Like all of those people are very funny and were a part of a lot of the big comedies of the 2000s. Like we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't heard of that one, but yeah, no, I think it's exciting anytime something like that happens, where it's like, oh, we're bringing back this genre, this idea, or this
Yeah.
ensemble. It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, and then actually just one thing that came to mind that I didn't want to forget that I put in the back of my mind. You mentioned AI. Do you have
Mhm.
concerns over AI in the world of filmmaking or the future of it?
Um, there are concerns. I do think it's going to affect a lot of people's jobs, which I think is really unfortunate. Like I see it, it's going to wreak havoc in the visual effects world, wreak havoc in the storyboard. A lot of the members of my union, it's going to wreak a lot of havoc for them, which I think
Mhm.
is just it's awful to hear. I do think though that when it comes to like fully fledged AI movies, I don't know how well those are going to perform, and I don't know how far along that is. I don't know if that's the concern just yet, because I think people and audiences are always going to be like drawn to more human stories. I just don't see that becoming like an AI making a real human story. I don't know if that's going to be something that
Yeah.
happens, but the implication of, oh, we can do all this pre-production work without any of these people involved, and I just see that it's going to make that suffer. But yeah, I see it wreaking havoc for a lot of people's jobs. That's the big concern that I see
Yeah.
with AI right now.
Yeah, it's something that I used to be a lot more concerned about until I learned a lot more about it and actually had the full-fledged conversations with ChatGPT and tried to see what it was capable of and just seeing how incompetent it is in with respect to anything artistic. And I think just echoing what you said about the human connection and making an audience feel like even if it got to a point where it can do movies better, like so what if it can't actually make you feel or you can't connect with it at all?
Yeah,
Is what I'm thinking at least.
yeah. Yeah, no, I feel that way because I feel like also people can tell when something is like disingenuous, or can
Mm-hmm.
tell when it's kind of like I guess a good example is like when you're watching like a bad movie, like you're watching something like The Room. That's entertaining because
Yeah.
it's like truthful. It's
Yeah.
somebody going out there trying to do something and not doing it. But then when you watch something like the newer movies like Sharknado or something, you can tell it's like they're intentionally doing what they're doing, and it kind of
Yeah.
loses that warmth and that fun to it.
Mm-hmm.
um and I think that the people can sense that, and I think that that might be like a feeling that comes with AI, where it's like, oh, I can feel like this isn't real, or this isn't like a genuine thing. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that it'll put people off, or it'll put a majority of people off. There are people that might go, I don't care, I like what this is doing, or this is cool, or but I
Yeah.
think that a majority of people will want that genuine emotional connection to the work, and I think that it'll be not felt with like a full on AI production.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm thinking. And without going on too long of a tangent, just like when you're making micro budget films and you're like self distributing and whatnot, you inevitably have to become a marketer. And it's like I consume a lot of marketing content,
Oh,
and a
that's
lot of
good.
these super successful marketers say the same thing over and over. Like they repeat each other and they repeat themselves. They're saying like, you want to sell something, you want to connect with audiences. Don't use AI. Put yourself in front of the camera and talk. Said it's astounding the difference in reception when you use AI generated content between being yourself. Like people don't eat that up, and there's a reason why most of the popular YouTubers and successful people in the marketing industry and whatnot, for lack of a better term, like influencers as well, like you know who they are, you see their face and everything, and really AI generated content or just not showing your face at all. Like that puts you at just an extreme disadvantage. So that gives me optimism there that already people are kind of like, yeah, I don't want to, I don't want to deal with a robot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that's such an important thing, and it even goes with it's really good that you do listen to marketing because that's a almost the biggest battle of making a movie is you go through the whole war to get the movie made, and then it's like, okay, it's made, now what? And a lot of people go like, I
Yeah.
don't know what to do anymore, and it's like, oh well, you got to get it out there, and it's like, how do I do that? And it's like knowing, being knowledgeable or being aware of that marketing aspect, because that's like what's the weird thing about the film industry is it's like these two things like oil and water that can never mesh where it's like art on one hand but like a business and marketing and like profitability on the other, and it's like understanding that though, and displaying your message is crucial because that's like the advice I always give to people is with Instagram and with TikTok, it's like you need
Mhm.
to build that army of followers or fans. And it's like, if you can get that die hard 10,000 fans, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, if you do a crowdfunding campaign and everybody donates only $10, you can make a low budget movie.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like, oh, then you can build that following. But it's like, it is crucial to like to show yourself and convey your message and to be that genuine filmmaker that gets those fans, because you've got to get the like the diehards because they'll come
Mhm.
out and they'll support you, and that's like the key to succeeding in my opinion is like an indie filmmaker is like finding that audience and keeping
Yeah.
the audience. And it's like Terrifier is a great example of
Oh,
that,
yeah.
where Damien Leone's been making those since like 2008. I think it was like a YouTube short. I think that was
Mhm.
the first time Art the Clown was shown. But it's like, oh, he just grossed a movie that's like one of the most successful movies ever that's completely independent. And
Mhm.
it's because it's like when Terrifier 2016 came out, it's like, oh, I've got my following now. Or even from what was it, All Hallows Eve, I think was the anthology before it. It was like, oh, he
Mhm.
slowly kept building up this following to now where it's
Yeah.
this cult thing, and it's like, oh yeah, he's on top of the world with that film, and I'm sure that people will follow him to whatever he does next. And
Mhm. Yeah.
but it's like it's
Absolutely.
important to build that diehard audience that will follow you and support you and crowd fund and make the movie that they want to see, that you want to make. And that's so important.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, unfortunate, but I don't think you can argue against that. Marketing is more important than the actual film itself. There,
uh, it can be. I mean, like, yes, you can get eyes on it, but I do think it is important to have that staying power, because you can make I'm trying to think if there's an example of a film. I'm sure there is, but it's like, oh, where the viral marketing pulled everyone in, and then it fell flat, and everyone like, but it's like, it's a dangerous road because you don't want to alienate people, and it's like, it's so true that it's like you only really get it's not true, but you only get that one shot. You want to make a good first impression. You want to
mhm.
always put your best foot forward, and you want to make sure your film speaks to that. And it's like, yeah, you could do. I mean, the marketing can make a bad film amazing, but yeah,
Yeah, 100%. And I care a lot about the movies I make. They're passion projects, absolutely. And I absolutely love them. So I'm going to put everything I have into them. But you do need to make sure that people see it. And just speaking as a whole, at least from what I've seen from the indie film world, I wish it wasn't this way. But yeah, just from my point of view, it seems like as a whole, the okay film that does great marketing is just going to perform so much better and they're going to be so much more successful than the amazing film that doesn't know anything about marketing.
yes, that is true. Yeah, you can have the most amazing movie in the world, but if nobody knows what it is, or you can't communicate what it is, or people don't know where to watch it, or it will just go somewhere and sit there, and you can't get that voice out. So yeah, it is marketing is a part that no one ever thinks about. Everybody always thinks about the hitting the end credit, the end at the end of the movie and post production, but it's like there's this whole other world, um, after the movie's done that is,
Yeah.
if not more important than actually making it, because you've
Yeah.
got to get it out there, because no one will know. And it's like, it's not even that no one will necessarily know, it's also the battle of getting that click, because there's
Mhm.
so much stuff, and everybody's so busy, and there's so much content, and everyone, I want to watch my show that I've been watching. I'm on season 5. I just want to get through my show. I don't want to watch some movie. It's like convincing them to click is another really,
Yes.
and that's what marketing can help with, is like communicating, oh, you should see this. This is why you should see this. This is cool. This is whatever.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. And that's like such a big battle. And it's so important that a lot of people overlook when they get to that finish line of making the movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, could you tell us about the awards you've won and also any exciting upcoming or recent projects that you've been a part of? I
Yeah,
think this will go
I
hand in
can.
hand.
Yeah, I'll kind of start. So it's like a production designer. I haven't really won too many awards. I typically work in like the TV, network TV movie world,
Mhm.
which is like my bread and butter. And then I'll go and do some of these like festival run movies, or these indie movies. But I've only ever really been nominated for a few, so I haven't really won a lot of awards in that sense. But in another sense, we have exciting news with my first produced movie that my girlfriend wrote and directed. It's going
Mhm.
through its festival circuit, and it's been winning a ton of awards, which has been super exciting. The film's called Thirst Trap. It's about a cam girl, that a failed actress turned cam girl, that develops a parasocial relationship with one of her fans that escalates to
Mhm.
stalking and wanting to find her in real life. So that's been really exciting. But that's what we finished shooting that in, like, I think it was 2022, maybe the beginning of 2023. But
Okay. Yeah.
it's finally gotten through. But we've been winning a lot of awards for that, which has been fun. And we found out today
Yeah.
it's actually on Tubi right now, which is really cool. So we were checking it
Oh,
out
really?
earlier
It made it
today.
to Tubi.
Yeah, yeah. So we're
Okay,
on Tubi
interesting.
right now.
Because yeah, because I was looking at the awards you won and I checked it out on IMDb and I couldn't see where to watch it. But okay, it's on Tubi
Yes,
now.
yes, we had been waiting. They'd given us the notice that it was coming out, but we didn't know. They don't tell you what day. It's just like, oh, it will be there. So I noticed it this morning. So it might have been on yesterday,
Okay.
but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, it just got on Tubi, which is cool. So we're happy to show that to more people, because we've had a great festival run where we've met a lot of really cool people going out and bringing the film around the states. But yeah, so yeah, that's the big
You know, it's
project that
really
we've
exciting
had.
stuff. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, yeah, it is exciting. It's really cool to think where we started it, like right around the time of the first strikes, and like back in
Uh
like
huh.
2022, we were talking about it, and we focused on writing a really tight, simple script, utilizing things that we knew we had
Yeah.
access to, like all the standard indie world stuff.
Yeah.
Thankfully, since we both have backgrounds in production design, we were able to amplify everything. So if you do get a chance to check out the trailer, even look at the poster, it's like, oh, it's so, we really
Yeah.
try to make it like eye
I have
catching
checked
and,
out the
and
trailer. Yeah.
feel big. Yeah, we try to make it feel big.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see now that how it's grown and gotten the attention of people, and it's now landed on a streaming platform where anyone can watch it. It's got Tubi, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it's
Oh,
it's
that's got
it's
to
been a
feel
it's been a
amazing.
really fun, yeah, it's been a really fun process stepping into that world, because I've been below the line as a crew member for so many years, and then to
Yeah.
kind of take that transition, and which was great, because we really felt ready for it at that time, which was good. We had a lot of confidence going in.
Yeah. 100%. No, it looks great. I'm really looking forward to
Thank
watching it.
you.
No, I'm excited that you said it's on Tubi now. And yeah,
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
anyone
No,
just
yeah, we're
anyone
so
has
excited
access to
too.
Tubi. The yeah I'll
Yeah.
definitely plug the link in the show notes. But
Oh,
yeah, I mean, if
fantastic. Yeah, that'd
anyone
be
watching this
awesome.
isn't familiar with, yeah, if anyone isn't familiar with Tubi, I mean, I see it on my smart TV, but also it's either Tubi.tv, Tubi.com. I'm not sure, but like I said, I'll plug the link in
Yeah.
the show notes. But it's
Awesome. Yeah,
it's a
that would
free
be
streaming
awesome.
service. It's yeah.
Yeah, no. For
and
anyone who
you
doesn't
got
know, yeah,
on there
Tubi's
through.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, what was that?
Oh yeah, no problem. You got on Tubi through an aggregator or through one of the
We
indie distributors, or how did that work?
What we did was when we were making the movie, we saw and we were talking with our crew. It was like, oh, distributors are really gonna like this. It's very
Mhm.
eye catching. It's a very you know important or not. It's a very important topic, and it's something that people will really relate to right now. And it's a thriller,
Oh,
so
100%.
that's like a great genre to break into. So we knew that distributors were going to
Absolutely.
like it. We initially went through aggregators and we reached out to a bunch of them, but what we also did was we made sure to go to film festivals that were offering
Mhm.
distribution or connection to like a conversation with distributors. So we were trying to really get
Yep.
as much and get it out in front of as much people as possible to find the best thing that worked the best for the movie. And so we lucked out that one of the film festivals we won at had they were a part of the winning was we'll distribute it. And so we got to work with them and they were like, yeah, we can get it on Tubi. It's also on a platform called Momitu. Forgot to mention that one. It's on a platform called Momitu as well, which is a new streaming service. But yeah, Momitu, Tubi,
Okay.
and then I think it's later going to come on Amazon Prime. But they're slowly going to roll it out over
Nice.
the next few months. And but that was a really awesome thing was to find a festival that it performed well at, and they were like, hey, we want to work with you guys and get this out there. But that was kind of how we did it ultimately at the end. But we did talk to a lot of distributors and aggregators.
Yeah. Exciting stuff for sure. Yeah, I mean that sounds like an amazing experience taking it on the road and everything. That's definitely something that I would like to experience at some
Oh
point
yeah,
for sure.
it
It
was
just sounds
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to meet all the different filmmakers and to kind of get to see people after watching it, where we get to talk to people after they'd seen the movie.
Mhm.
It was really cool. It was a really great experience to kind of travel around and meet all these new filmmakers in different states that we had met.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Awesome. Well, yeah, no, congrats again. Like I said, it looks amazing. I looked at the trailer. It looks really well made, and I'm
Thank
really
you,
looking
thank you.
forward to
Yeah,
watching it.
yeah. We put a lot of hard work into that one to make that one as special as it could. We were really hoping
Yeah.
that we were so excited when we got our rough cut done, and it was like, oh man, this feels great.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know that feeling. Yeah. So switching gears into some questions I ask all my guests. If there's one performer you could work with, who would it be?
One performer. It would probably have to be. I've got a few, but all my friends would call me out. But if there was one performer, it would definitely have to be Sarah Michelle Gellar, because I'm a huge fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That's like one of my favorite shows,
Okay.
always has been.
Yeah.
I've watched it a million times, but I would love to get the chance to
Yeah.
work with her. I've almost crossed paths with her a few times, but I've never been on a project that she was on. But that would be an awesome fan experience to get to work with her in some
Oh
capacity.
yeah, I can imagine that would be a surreal experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be cool. But yeah, that's one I would love to work with her.
What about one writer and or director?
One writer and director. Um, I'll go outside the box on this one just to not name
Okay.
anybody that nobody else has probably named, but two
You're probably
that's
gonna say
kind
someone
of
I've never heard of.
probably it's a little bit of a cheat answer because it's two people, but I would love to get to work with Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. They're two of my favorite filmmakers right now. They work in the sci-fi horror world. Their most recent film was Something in the Dirt.
Okay.
But I love they're very low budget indie guys. Basically, they self-produce their own
Okay.
movies, and yeah, or I know they have a producer and a company and all that, but it's like they are very. It's like, oh, we're doing all of this ourselves, but they make incredible
Yeah.
work. Like their first film, Resolution, blew me away the first time I saw it because it was just like, wow, these two guys did all of this and told this really interesting new story and it was creepy and weird, and it was like such a cool world that they built. And it's like, oh wow, it's just these two guys that did, or two guys and their producer. I don't want to cut him out, but I just love the stuff that they do, and I would love to get a chance to work on something like that where it's such a collaborative effort, and it's like such a small scale project, and really telling these cool, unique, new stories in that space. But I would love to get the chance to work with them in some capacity in the future, either through them producing something that I made, or production designing, or art directing, or some capacity. But yeah, their work I think is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with them, but I definitely dig everything you said about them. I love the independent spirit for sure. Really
Yes,
going
yeah, yeah.
about
No,
it and
they're yeah,
doing what you want to do. That's exactly what I'm all about.
yeah.
And then last one, your top 5 comedy movies of all time.
Top five comedy. Um, these are in no particular order. I'm
Okay.
gonna go with. I'll try and be a little. I'm gonna go with ones that I know that I've rewatched multiple times. The
Okay.
first would be, and I'll try and do more recent ones because we were talking about newer comedies. So I'll try and do more recent comedies. But one is one that I really loved when it came out that completely took me by surprise was Palm Springs, the Andy Samberg movie. That
Interesting. I did not see that one. Did that go straight to
oh,
streaming?
it did. It was one of those weird straight to Hulu, I think it was. And I remember
Yeah.
I was gonna watch it one night, and I was like, oh, it's kind of like sounds like Groundhog's Day. I don't know. But then I ended up watching it, and I was like, this is such a fun and clever movie. The script is fantastic for it. And I've seen it
Mhm.
multiple times now because it's such a cool movie to like break apart the writing and really see like, oh, what they're doing and the setups and the payoffs, but also in the way that
Mhm.
they utilized that time loop genre, and it
Mhm.
didn't feel like a ripoff or a copy. And it's like, oh, that was so impressive. But I loved that movie. Um, and it was just hilarious.
Yeah.
I thought that it was yeah, so funny, so clever. But that was one as of recent that I really enjoyed. Um, Another one would have to be um, I'll go a little older, I guess. I know I was trying to stay new, but one that comes to mind would probably be like Army of Darkness. Does that count? A horror comedy?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it is recognized as both for sure. So yeah,
Yeah,
well,
but
yeah,
that one is one I watched multiple times. Like I've watched it multiple times as a kid, and it introduced me to Sam Raimi because I was a kid when that one came out. I
yeah,
was a little too young for Evil Dead, and those were a little too probably too violent. But
yeah,
I love that movie. I rewatch it all the time just because it's so witty and clever and funny. Um,
yeah,
Another
for sure.
one
I
would
actually just
probably
had on a guest that was an extra in that. That was an extra in Army of
oh
Darkness. He was actually in Hometown Summer. He played Jim.
oh awesome. Awesome. Yeah, no,
So
that's fun.
cool
Yeah, no,
coincidence.
it's yeah. Well, that's something that you'll see the more you dive into the film world, like how small of a world it
Yeah,
is. Like all these people are connected, and it's like, oh wow, it's such a small world.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Another one, I guess, would be because I've got two. It's Palm Springs, Army of Darkness. Another one would be Dinner in America.
Mhm.
Any Red Letter Media fans, they turned me on to that one. But Dinner in America was awesome. That was a hilarious, fresh take. It's kind of like a punk rock Napoleon Dynamite, but I really liked that movie. It was so fresh and funny and different, and yeah, it was really cool. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what that director, the writer director, does in the future of his career because he had another movie come out to a theatrical run surprisingly for Snack Shack, which was very
Mhm.
fun. Yeah, that was a very
Yep, I saw
fun
that one
movie
in
as
theaters.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that, which is cool. It's like what we were saying, like seeing an indie director, writer director release that coming of age comedy in theaters, really cool. But yeah, Dinner in America would be up there, I think, for right now. I'm trying to, like I said, trying to stay recent or newer.
Oh, you don't have to. Just say whatever comes to mind.
Um, another one, so three. Another one would be we'll go a little older. This one's like a really guilty pleasure of mine. But I would say Bring It On is one of my
Okay,
favorite
yeah.
comedies. I love that movie. I watched that a lot as a kid too. I just thought it's such a fun world that they introduced you to, and it's so absurd
Yeah.
but taken so seriously, and it's like it's just so I love that movie. I rewatched that any bad day. It's like, all right, we need something to laugh. I'll watch Bring It On.
Yeah. That's definitely one of the ones that was on TV all the time growing
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. 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 It's a fun one. It's just such a light, fun, fluffy movie. It's fun. So that's four. I think I've got.
Yep.
Yeah. Fifth. Let's see. Let's see if this one count. Would Back to the Future count for you as a comedy? It's got that.
Yeah, sure. It's very lighthearted, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm more of a like I know you're a huge that early 2000s, that
Yes.
raunchy Judd Apatow. Those
Yeah.
aren't my favorite comedies. I'm much lighter in spirit.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like all of mine are going to be a little more fluffier.
Yeah,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
no,
I mean, yeah, we all have our own tastes.
yeah. Back to the Future though would probably be that's something I also rewatch often. Not only because
Yeah.
I find it absolutely hilarious and it's just a fun movie, but it's like one of the best movies to watch to kind of what I was saying at the beginning, break down a scene and really look at
Yeah.
everything that's working in that scene. Because that movie is like flawless down to every beat of like everything was well intentioned, thought out, and it's just such an incredible movie in that way where it's like, oh wow, this joke was set up in the first 5 minutes and got paid off at the
Yeah.
end, and it's an incredible movie to look at, to like break down and tinker and look at what makes the movie work, or like what makes movies work, or what makes it like something good. Yeah, so that would probably be my fifth, just to not spend hours thinking. but
Yeah.
but yeah, no, those would be five. As I've tried to keep it, yeah, few more recent ones that I saw, and then a few from that I rewatched a lot from as a kid to now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, good, unique list for sure.
Yeah, try to also not pick something that other people would pick, just to get maybe
Yeah,
somebody
no, none of
watching
those have been
find something
picked so
new.
far.
Yeah, find something new to watch that they haven't seen.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, great. No, it's been a pleasure having you on, Cameron. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no, of
Yeah.
course. Thank you so much for having me on. This was awesome. Thank you.